Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. Today's business spotlight is on 110 Baked. Here is what the owner, Amy, had to say. My full-time job is a middle school culinary teacher with my background being a trained pastry chef. I had started taking dessert orders for family and friends, eventually taking on some clients that were not family and friends out of my home for some extra cash on the weekends. My husband had not found a job post-COVID layoff that he was passionate about until we came across the opportunity to purchase an existing business, to which we flipped into a small cafe bakery in our small town. We are both passionate about coffee, espresso, pastries, and breakfast offerings. We started our business about 3 years ago, just a couple short months after my first and hardest miscarriage. My first pregnancy came as a surprise to us as we had not begun trying yet, but intended to in a few months. 2 days before my first ultrasound, I began bleeding heavily and soon discovered I had a large subchorionic hematoma, which was right next to my baby. The hematoma was larger than the size of my baby, though my baby was thriving and healthy. I bled heavily for 3 weeks straight before it subsided. After a week of no signs of bleeding, I unfortunately miscarried at 13 weeks. The hardest part of this miscarriage, aside from the heavy bleeding and the constant worrying, was holding my baby in the palm of my hand and seeing all of their features so clearly. After my original due date, we began considering trying again, and fully started trying a few months later. After about 10 months of truly trying, I got pregnant again, which resulted in another miscarriage at 7 weeks, while at an event for my business. We have been trying ever since with no luck. After much therapy, I have slowly began discussing my losses and fertility with more and more people, which allows me to keep my babies in my heart while also lending an ear to others that may find themselves in need of support. While starting our business was not intended to be directly related to our losses, it gives me an outlet to be creative rather than my overthinking mind through my losses and months of infertility. None of my customers know, maybe they will know after this podcast, about our struggle to get and stay pregnant, but there are so many times that it's helped me to help others. Even without realizing it, I crossed paths with another lost mom who lost her baby after birth. My products became a part of the celebration of her daughter's birthday. As I become more comfortable, my hope is to be more open with customers and allow my business to be a sense of comfort for those in need of support. I hope to become comfortable enough to sell products to raise money to donate to nonprofits and organizations that support lost families. And you can check out her business on either Facebook or Instagram at 110 Baked. Thank you so much, Amy, for sharing about your business with us. Today, I am talking with Jackie. She talks about going through infertility, including failed treatments, IVF, and using donor eggs. She also discusses her miscarriage and the loss of her mono twins, along with where she is now in her journey of motherhood. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Jackie. Jackie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jackie. I'm 37. I live in Minnesota with my husband and 2 dogs and a cat. We like to foster dogs in our spare time and a couple local rescues here, so we've always got a few running around.
Have you had any
Definitely.
foster fails?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. Our first one was in January that we foster failed, but it did take like 10 different dogs until we finally did fail. So
I feel like that would be the hard part for me is like letting them go. But I guess you know that they're going to good homes, right? So that makes it
yeah,
a little easier.
it's definitely hard. Like there's always like a couple tears and I always like have to watch them out the window until they just like totally,
Do they ever
um
send you like updates or pictures or anything?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they do. Yeah, I have some that'll send me text messages. I have one that like will send me messages and photos like from the dog. Like it's
Oh,
the
that
cutest
is
thing ever.
adorable.
Like, yeah. So I appreciate it. I love seeing them and getting to be a part of their story.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've always, like I said, been interested in that. I just feel like I'd have a hard time with it.
It's hard. But it's so sometimes it's so good too, because sometimes you're like, oof, I just need a break, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure not all of them are like, I'm sure some of them
Perfect.
have issues or, from their past, just like people. So,
Right. Yeah, totally. So we were kind of like waiting to find that dog that fit in really well with like our current dog too. So it had to be like this perfect dynamic. So that part makes it not as difficult. Like you still love the
yeah.
dog and you like wish you could keep them, but like you're not the best place for them. So
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, that's our spare time. It takes up a lot of it, but yeah.
So, do you mind sharing a little bit about your loss journey?
Yeah, it's pretty long. My story is complicated and long, but so me and my husband got married in 2019. We had begun trying prior to being married. So I don't really know how long, but we were together for like 8 years before we got married. So it, it was going to happen. So we did that. Nothing was happening. And so we saw a doctor. We did do 5 rounds of IUI, and those all failed. So then we moved on to IVF. And that was, I believe, our first IVF cycle was in April 2021. And I went on to do 3 different retrievals, but we never were able to get any embryos. It was just not really explained. It was poor egg quality. We didn't really know why that was. So that was super frustrating, but we ended up, I have a cousin who's like my exact age. We're 9 days apart. So, yeah, and she had 2 babies very easily. And she said, hey, if you want, I'll donate my eggs. And so she did that. It was amazing. It unfortunately did not turn out. So, my first transfer, we transferred 1 embryo and it was successful. However, it was a loss at 8 weeks, and that was a chromosomal issue. So that was really, really hard. And it was really hard for my cousin, too, which we had not really thought about. She felt very responsible for this loss, which was, I told her it was ridiculous because, I was so thankful that I even had the opportunity to get pregnant in the first place. But that, yeah, it was extremely difficult to go through that, especially considering all of the treatments we had gone through up until then. But we did decide we would try again, and we used up the rest of the embryos. We had a total of 5 embryos from her. So our first one worked, and then the following 4 failed. So then we were kind of back to square one. We had no idea what we were going to do. And I came across some Facebook groups about embryo donation. And I met a family through one of these Facebook groups, and they donated 17 embryos to us, which was amazing. They are incredible people, and I am so fortunate to have met them in it seems like such a strange way, like social media, but it's wonderful. It can be really a beautiful thing. But we went ahead and got ready for a transfer. So in between all of this, I had had a couple laparoscopy surgeries and things, and I have endometriosis, stage 3, 3, 4. And so that was likely like the cause of like some failures as well as my poor egg quality. At least that's as far as we could understand. So I had like another lap surgery before we ended up transferring our donor embryos. And that ended up being, so our donor embryo transfer was April 2023, I believe. And That one was successful. We transferred 2 embryos, one stuck, and then that embryo actually split into identical twins. And my background is actually in ultrasound, so I'm an ultrasound tech by trade, and I worked in an OBGYN and infertility clinic for many years. So when I found out slash was watching my coworker scan me, and we saw 2 little babies all inside one sac, which is incredibly dangerous. In all of my years of scanning, I had seen this one time. So there's a couple different kinds of twins, right? There's what we call di twins. Those are fraternal twins. Those are the most common type of twins and the safest. There's mono-di twins, and those are the most common identical twins. Higher risk, but still fairly, common if you think of identical twins anyways. And then there was my boys, which were mono twins. So they were inside one sac, shared one placenta. The main concern with this is that their umbilical cords can get very, very tangled because they are together. They're not separated by a membrane or anything like mono-di twins are. So right away, I was transferred to maternal fetal medicine. So my MFM doctor agreed they were mono twins, and we would just do weekly scans until viability was the thought. Our plan was to put me as an inpatient at the University of Minnesota hospital, which is connected to Children's Hospital, at 24 weeks gestation, and to keep me there until I would deliver around 30 weeks. So sometimes they'll go a little longer. It's like 30 to 34 weeks typically with mono twins. And surprisingly, my pregnancy seemed pretty easy. Everything was going really, really well. And then I had one last scan before I was going to be an inpatient. And it was at my work. And I just asked my coworker, hey, scan me real quick. I was 23 weeks and like 4 days. And so she started scanning me, and we realized that baby B did not have a heartbeat anymore. And trying to process that, especially because I know exactly what I'm looking at on the ultrasound screen, I feel like it was like an out of body. Like I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I just was shocked. My coworker was shocked. I mean, it was awful. We also didn't know what that would mean for baby A. So I'm grieving this loss of, his name was Remy. So I'm grieving Remy, and I'm terrified for baby A, who's Wyatt, because another concern when you lose one of the twins when they share a placenta is that their blood flow supply is all kind of connected because of the umbilical cords and the single placenta. So we ended up going to the hospital that night, and I was checked in for about 4 days where they just kept me on the monitor continuously to ensure that Wyatt was doing all right. And he was. Everything really did look pretty good. And they no longer thought that I should stay until delivery because I was now a singleton pregnancy, which I kind of kick myself over all the time because it would just lead to a whole slew of other issues. But there's not a whole lot of literature on mono twins in the first place. And then to have like a later loss and then have a continuation of the pregnancy, there's even less on. So the doctors really didn't know how to proceed. and they were doing the best that they could. And I trusted everything that, they had to say. So we ended up doing like an MRI to check on Wyatt, make sure everything looked good. And it did. It continued to look okay. We did have one scare where I went back to the hospital for a few more days. I think it was another 4 days where we watched him on the monitor. And as soon as I had gotten to the hospital, his NST looked fine. But like while I was at my doctor's appointment, it was not looking fine. So he must have moved or something. And then it was fine, So, and that was, I think it was in October last year. So when I got out, we were just we had made a plan that I would have a C-section at 32 weeks, which was like the earliest they would allow me to. And so that was going to be December 5th. And things kind of, kept going okay. It was November 6th that I woke up not really feeling Wyatt moving. So I went to the hospital and we had lost him. So I got checked into the hospital and they started inducing me. I gave birth to Remy and Wyatt November 8th last year. And yeah, that has been by far the hardest thing that I have ever gone through, my husband has ever gone through. Those are my boys.
They have beautiful names. I love their names.
Thank you.
You've definitely been through so much, such a long journey with the infertility and the early loss and then losing one twin and then I mean, it's just like
Yeah,
those things, it's just like one thing after another,
it really piles on. Yeah, it's like it surprises me most days that is how things have kind of turned out. It's almost unbelievable that like those things would happen to someone.
Sometimes it doesn't feel real. I
Yeah,
like, is
no.
this really my life? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just like there's no way that yeah, like I always say, like, what did I do in a past life? Like, I must have, like, just seriously, because this is crazy. But
do you
I
ever like
mean,
just wonder like how am I still like going about my life?
oh my
Like,
gosh, all
how
the
am I
time.
doing this?
Yeah, all the time. And then, like, a lot of people, they say, to anybody who's been through like this kind of loss, like how strong we are and how, and I'm always just like, you know, like, I really don't feel that is who I am. Like, I I see where they're coming from, but like, what is my choice? Like, I have just been dealt these terrible hands and I'm just dealing with it the best that I can. And some days are good and some days are not. But I would not stare at myself and say, you're so strong, especially because I know how those bad days are, and it feels like there's a lot of them.
Yeah. And I think people who haven't been through it just can't possibly understand, what
No.
the things that we struggle with every day.
Oh, yeah. And the triggers that come up that you don't know are triggers. So then they are like, I had the hardest time just like going to stores that I had been to while I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know why that was such a huge thing, but it's like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store the last time I was there, I was pregnant. And
I
that
had
was
that
so
experience
hard.
at work because I
Yeah.
went back to work and then I was like, oh, the last time I was here, I was pregnant and now I'm not, but I still look pregnant, but I'm not.
Yeah.
No.
It's really hard being in your body for those few weeks where you're still very pregnant looking. Like, I didn't want to see myself at all. It was so hard. And I quit my job,
I was
obviously. I
about to
mean, I
ask,
feel
did
like,
you go back to that?
yeah, no, and nobody was surprised as much as they would have, and it sucks because I loved my job. I loved the people that I worked with, and I really enjoyed my job, and I miss it. But I just know that, like, mentally, that's not something that I'm like, it's not good for me to do.
Yeah. I mean, definitely it's one of those times where even if you love something, you have to prioritize yourself and your mental health
Hmm.
and have to like listen to yourself, like
Yeah,
try to push
yeah.
through, like I can do it.
Yeah. Well, and so many people were like, I didn't know how you were doing it before the loss, even because just struggling with all the infertility, and then all I'm doing is scanning moms, all day. They always want to connect through, like, oh, do you have kids? And and it's like most people aren't asked that on like a daily basis, but like I was,
Yeah.
because that's what I was doing. I was scanning their babies. So
You're like, I really don't want to have this conversation multiple times a day, every day, please.
no, it was terrible. I just like came up with things where I'd say, "Oh, nope, not yet. Not yet. Yep. Soon, hopefully." Mhm.
It's like,
You
here,
know,
would you like to hear my whole life story now? Because you
right?
asked. No.
You're going to feel real depressed. You're going to really wish you hadn't.
I know that's one of
Yeah.
those questions. I always hate it. Even now, like 6 years
Oh,
later, I
yeah.
still hate it. But most of the time I can just, oh no, we have this many at home or, whatever. But it always feels
Mhm.
like or at least for me, I feel guilty if I don't bring her up, but I don't want to go into it every time. So,
Right. I know it's a hard like line. Like I took a like quick job at Target just so I have something to do. And then like sometimes I'm like, "Oh wow, these people like don't know anything about me. Like nobody knows anything there."
yeah.
Which can feel good because then I don't like I wanted people to get to know me before I like was, "Oh, that's the girl who has, her babies died," or I and who knows if they would think that, but for some reason that was like really a fear of mine, like that somebody's just going to be like, "Oh, nobody's going to want to talk to me because it's awkward and they don't know what to say." So I wanted people to like get to know me before I like opened up that part. But I've had so many people ask me like, "Oh, do you have kids?" And I still kind of, since losing the boys, I still kind of freeze because I like don't know what to say or do at this point. And it's still, I mean, it's almost been a year. It hasn't even been a year. So it's like I it still feels fresh enough that I haven't like come up with like something. I had like my manager ask me if I had kids, and I just stared at her and like shook my head, and I was like, that was a really weird interaction. Like,
I mean, I laugh because I get it. Like, it's just
yeah,
like it's just so hard. It's not like, it's one of those things that people say to make small talk or whatever, like, how's your day? Do you have kids? Like these kind of things.
yeah.
And it's like, but they don't understand like what they're asking us.
No, right? And I know that like they would never do that if they had any idea, and they just don't have any idea. And I'm like, I don't know how like I can get people to stop asking that question. I
Like
gotta
we just
have
need to
like
wear
a
a sign or something.
pin, like don't ask me about kids. Yeah, it's
Sometimes it seems like the only way to make people stop,
yeah,
like
that's true.
blatantly flashing button or I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, right.
So before you went through loss, did you know anybody else who had been through it?
Kind of. So I have quite a few people that I knew that have had like an early miscarriage, and then for later, like stillbirth, one of my cousins who's older than me, quite a bit older than me, so we're not like super close, but she did have a later loss. Like I think she was 20 weeks or so. we didn't even really know she was pregnant yet, though, because she had had some losses before. So she was waiting quite a while to tell anybody. So she was pretty supportive. Like she came over and like gave me like a journal to write in and like a book. And then I actually went to a place called Faith's Lodge in Wisconsin. It's only like an hour and a half maybe from where we live. And they are a child loss retreat place. So we went there in January last year, and we were there with, I want to say, like 5 other couples, which randomly we were all from Minnesota. So I got really close to a couple of the women there, and we all live fairly close together, and we text each other all the time. And those people were there for me in ways that, like, the people that I had been friends with forever couldn't be. And I found that so important and so helpful. And then I met Bernice from Chasing the Rainbows, and she's such an amazing person. And I started doing a lot of group therapy stuff with her and Chasing the Rainbows, and started volunteering with her quite a bit. So the one other person that I knew that had been through this was my uncle. He had had, him and his first wife had had a stillborn child, many, many years ago. But him and my aunt came to the hospital and met our boys. And, he just knew that, like, I needed them to be there. And, like, he was there for my husband quite a bit too, since he had been on that side of things. But yeah, I think I was really fortunate with knowing people that, or at least getting to know people who had been in very similar situations. Because as you know, it's incredibly lonely. And most of the time you can't, like, nobody else can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Family and friends, they can try, but you're right. It's not the same as people who
No.
have been through it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just, I mean, how could we possibly expect them to?
Yeah. And it's one of
But,
those things like we would never like wish it on somebody else.
right.
I want other people to know what it feels like, but it's nice to know
Right.
that there are people that know what it feels like. If that
Yes. It's
makes
always like,
sense.
oh, I'm sorry, but like, I'm so thankful for you. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, but it's just so helpful to connect with people.
So when you were going through infertility, did you think that this is the hard part? So once I'm pregnant, because we went through infertility too, and
Hmm.
I thought like this is the hard part. So once I
Yeah.
get pregnant, it's smooth sailing, right? Did you
Hmm.
ever like think those kind of things?
You know, so since I had like been in the industry, I guess, of pregnancy with our first pregnancy, I was just like, that was too, this is funny, too easy. Because it was absolutely not easy at all. But I was like, there's just no way that I'm going to get through to this without something happening. And maybe it was because I was terrified, or, had all this infertility trauma, but I was just like, there's just no way. And then we had the loss. But then with the boys, when I first got pregnant, so the thing also that's tricky with mono twins is you don't know that they're twins until quite a bit later, because they're very small and they're so close together that it just looks like one baby on ultrasound. So we didn't even know I was having twins until we were like 9 weeks. And I'd been being scanned like weekly from 5 weeks. So I'd had like these 3 weeks thinking, one baby, this is it. This is going to be it. And then so I had been scanned the week prior by one of my coworkers, and we saw one baby. We were just thrilled. It was great. And then I asked my other coworker the next week, can you just quick scan me really fast? She's like, oh yeah, sure. And like, I told her I like blacked out because I was like, I don't know what I said, but like we were both looking at the screen and my mouth just dropped and I like look like our eyes just connected and she's like, oh. She's like, oh no, oh my God. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. Like, oh no. And then she's like, it's okay. Just, you don't have to say anything. I just need to do my scanning. And I was just like, I think that was before work. Yes, it was. That was before my shift started. And I was like, I need to leave now. She's like, uh-huh, yeah, it's fine. Okay. But I like had to run around and I'm like telling like HR and I'm like, I need to leave. And they're like, oh, what's going on? And I was like, emergency. I just need to get out of here right now. Because like, I mean, I knew what kind of twins I was looking at right away. And I immediately called my doctor who I worked with. And I was like, have you looked at my scans yet? She's like, no. Like, she was probably at home. Like, she was. And I was like, I need you to look at them and I need you to help me, like, right now. And I told her when I saw her the last time, I was like, you probably have PTSD from me calling you. Because every time I'd call her, it would be like something emergent was happening. She's like, yeah, a little bit.
Every time your name comes up, she's like, no.
Oh, no. My husband has that too. Every time I call him when he's like at work, he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I just calling to see what you wanted to have for dinner.
No emergencies now.
Yeah, everything's okay.
I think
Yeah.
that's one of those happy memories you can have of the pregnancy of like, I mean, yes, you knew like what you were looking at. You knew it could be scary and had risks, but it's still, when you look back at it, kind of funny,
Right. Yes. Yeah. Cause it's just like all these just crazy things that I never really expected. And, when I look back on being pregnant, it still is the happiest I had ever been. So like, I don't think back and I'm sad. I miss them and I wish that they were here. But also, it makes me smile too, and one of the things that really kind of helped me with that thinking was like, I had heard somewhere that their mark on my life doesn't need to be tragedy. It doesn't need to be sadness. Like, they wouldn't have wanted to be that on my life. They are so much more than that. They were everything that I wanted, and for that to just be a legacy of being sad it just doesn't fit with what they were for me. Their bedroom was like, the nursery was dinosaur themed. So like for a while, I'd see all these dinosaur things and it would make me so sad. But now when I'm like walking through Target and I see a random like dinosaur socks, I think, oh, hi babies. That's just a little note from them or something.
I love that. I think it's hard to get to that point of,
Mhm.
because we think we have to be sad all the time. Like if we're not sad all the time, we're not
With
like,
them or
yeah,
thinking of them or
but I think
mhm.
you're right, exactly, that they don't want us to only think of them in sadness.
Right.
They're
No.
still our babies. We're still their
Mhm.
moms. They'll always be our children. And I think
Yeah.
it's definitely okay to have those happy thoughts about them and those happy memories, you
Yeah.
know?
Because, yeah, they're our babies. We love them and we want to remember them. And the same way you remember anyone you lost, you might be sad, but also you're like, that makes me happy. Like, I like remembering them. And even if their memories are mostly just me pregnant, that's the memories that I have.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade the weeks I had pregnant with Jasmine for anything. So
Right. Yeah.
those
Like,
are
I
those
would,
are the memories we got. So
yeah. Yeah, I would do it all over again, you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's interesting with twins, especially that you hear those comments like all the time, like, "Oh yeah, twins, you get two for one," and
Yeah,
all those kind
yeah.
of things. I feel like people really don't understand how many risks there are with twin pregnancies.
Yeah. And like before I went in so we did transfer the 2 embryos, and I was so scared that there was going to be 2. I was like, that's not the goal here. Like, I just want one. I remember when I came out from my ultrasound and there had only been one gestational sac. My other coworker was like, "Oh, you look so much better." I was like, "I know. I was just so scared. I didn't want to have twins. I knew the scariness of twins, you know." So that was another like, I gotcha. Like, no, but
And I
I
think it's
mean,
good with your profession. It's good to know things, but also sometimes not good
yeah,
to know things.
I know. I was like, is this good or bad? I still don't know, because it also meant like I didn't have any kind of ignorance towards, like, most people, if you had said twins, would, yeah, they'd be scared maybe, but like they're not. Me, I was like, you basically told me I miscarried. I knew the danger of what I was seeing, and I had at that moment felt like I lost them, and I was only 9 weeks pregnant. So, like, I remember trying to call my mom and trying to explain to her this isn't just identical twins. And she just could not grasp the concept. She's like, "You see twins all the time." I don't understand.
You're like, yeah, but not this kind.
Yeah, I'm like, "This is different." And she's like, "Man, no, I don't think it is." Like, she just really couldn't get it. And I was like, "It is, I promise you." It took her like a really long time before she could like understand the gravity of it all. And I think it was like the more research she actually got into it, because people would be like, "Oh, my sister had, those types of twins." And I'm like, "No, she didn't." I promise you she didn't. They don't know what they're talking about. I literally do this for a living. Just
Oh, I know,
listen to
and I
me and
know those
not your
people.
cousin Brenda or whatever.
And I know those people are trying to be helpful. You have all those people. Jasmine, she had CDH, which is a congenital diaphragmatic hernia. So I would
Mhm.
have all these people like, "Oh, my friend's baby had that," but it was actually CHD, not CDH. I'm like, "Okay, but heart defect is different than this."
Yeah,
But thanks for
this
the
is
story.
not. And even that, there's different levels to it. There can be very minor, and then there can be very major.
Just acknowledge that it sucks and let's move on.
Yeah, right. Quit telling me to just relax.
I know. Oh my gosh, I know. It's like, "Oh, you know what? I never thought of that one. I should have
Yeah,
been doing
thanks.
that from the beginning."
Right? My God. And it's like, I know they're trying to be helpful, but like, I don't know what this need for like, other people to like try to fix everything. And I'm like, you can just not try to fix it. Like, I feel like this is something that we're kind of trying to learn as more people speak up for themselves instead of this quiet, okay, I don't want to make it awkward. If somebody asks me, "Do you have any kids?" and I say I did, they died. Now I'm the one who's making it awkward. And I'm like, well, they're the ones that asked me a personal question. So, like,
Maybe you learn how to respond better to awkward
yeah,
comments,
right.
you know?
Or like people can just say, "Hey, that sucks. I'm sorry." Instead of, "Oh, just try again next, whatever," or
I know.
whatever stupid thing that they're saying. And I'm like, that's not helpful. And it's weird. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I remember like I had to go to the foot doctor. It was just a couple of months after I delivered Jasmine, and I had to say, "Well, I had a stillbirth, a couple of
Mhm.
months ago," and oh, it was an actual baby, and I'm like, "Okay, well, even a miscarriage is an actual baby, okay?" But
Yeah.
because I've had
Mhm.
those too, and I was like, "And that's
Yeah.
still my baby," but okay. It was just like the
Mhm.
comments like that.
Yeah, you're like, as compared to,
I know. I was like, "Yep,
yeah,
I held her and everything."
yeah. She was real.
What do you want me to say to this awkwardness?
Oh my gosh. I remember like having to fill out that intake form at the doctor's office for the first time after losing the boys. And they ask you how many pregnancies and how many living children do you have. Oh, that sucked. And it's like those kind of triggers that come out of nowhere. You're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Right.
And that it's one of those things that kind of like ruins your whole day.
Yeah. I
Out of
think,
nowhere.
it's not just like losing our babies. It's forever changing how we see pregnancy and children and all those little things. Just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we never know what we're gonna face in a day. So
Yeah, that is very true.
were there any, I know you mentioned a couple, but were there any other like resources that you found that helped you after going through both infertility and loss?
With infertility, I have my Instagram, which has been so helpful and so nice because I've connected with so many people who have gone through very similar things with infertility, with loss, with donor embryos, with all of it. And that Instagram has been surprisingly one of my lifelines. I have people on there that will, send me a message saying, "Oh, thank you so much. You're helping me, not feel so alone." And I'm like, "No, thank you. Like, you guys are helping me feel not so alone. I promise I get just as much out of this as like other people are getting from my account. My space that I can talk about my babies without anybody being weird about it, because they all know and they all were so supportive and still talk about them to me, which is just amazing. And then they're also cheering me on when I go in and try again, So, and we're hoping to be able to do that again come December. So, fingers crossed everything works out to that. But yeah, that was
A lot of,
probably one of the better resources. And I always tell people, like, you don't have to have an Instagram that's just infertility or just loss. You can just follow these accounts. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't find it until well, maybe it was like a year after losing Jasmine. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had had this like right when I lost her. I didn't want
Yeah.
to disappear, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I had gone through the donor eggs, my retrievals, my IUIs, all of that before I ended up. I did my Instagram as soon as I got the donor embryos because I was like, oh, this is like a really new thing. Not a lot of people have done this. And most people don't even know what it is. And so, like, I felt like I really needed to connect with somebody that could relate to me. And I just wanted to make sure that these babies were going to be okay and I would know how to raise them being donor conceived and all the things that get complicated, but other people have done it. We can do it. So man, otherwise that Instagram would be years old. So I only started it like a year and a little bit ago, not that long ago, which is just crazy. But it's so nice. I really do encourage people to go on there and just look. You don't even have to do much. But yeah, that's been one of my favorite ways of connecting with people.
I feel like too, like you said, that we can feel so alone, especially when we're going through a more rare situation,
Mm-hmm.
like with the donor eggs, or like with Jasmine having the rare condition, or with your twins being more of the rare kind of twins, like just those things like that. And we think we're the only ones who have ever gone through this. And then you find
Yeah.
I'm not the only one, you know? So
Yeah. It's just really nice to find people to connect with that, oftentimes I'm not going to find somebody who's been through that just like, on my block because they're, rare. But I always say that word means nothing to me now.
no.
But
I agree.
you've got 1% chance. You're telling me I will. Like
Yes,
that's
that's me too.
it.
I'm like,
Mhm.
your statistics suck. I hate them.
Yeah. I am the reason that is a statistic, right?
Right. And once you're part of that, yeah, it's like, okay, well, then you're just saying it's a guarantee it's going to happen in
Yeah.
me. So.
Mhm. Yeah, it's crazy feeling, but yeah.
So I'm curious, since we're actually the same age, did you or has age been a barrier at all for you in your treatments and stuff? Have they treated you?
Not at first because I was started so long ago now. I got a lot of, "Oh, you're still young, you're fine." That I don't quite hear that anymore, which is kind of annoying because I'm like, "Well,
Could you still say it, please?
right, if you could just still, yeah, it would make me feel better." And I don't feel like, I mean, women are much older and they still have babies. So I do have an internal struggle with it just because I've been wanting this since we were like 30. We wanted to have a baby at 30. And now I'm 37 and we still don't have a living child. And now like people are like, "Oh, get on that. You still haven't, and I'm like,
It's a
"Oh, I could
big
just
F
punch you."
you right there.
Yeah. Like, I've been trying. Trust me. Yeah. So I keep going in my head, "Oh, I'd really like to have one before I'm 40." That's really like thing in my head. And I hope that I can because I don't know how long I'll go on after 40. And I say that now, but like I changed my mind a million times throughout this journey. And so by the time I hit 40, I could be like, "No, I'm still going."
Yeah.
But like for some reason that's in my head right now and that scares me.
I mean, I think it is scary, especially when you've been trying for so long and then, you've had all the ups and downs and it's just hard to
Mhm.
know where your head is going to be, even from
Yeah.
day to day.
Yeah, totally. And I always tell people, like, they're like, "Oh, if you gave advice to somebody doing IVF, what would it be?" And I'm like, just be prepared to change your mind. Be prepared to change your path because you don't know what you will do until you're faced with it. Like some people are like, "Oh, I'd never do IVF. Oh, I'd never do donor egg. Oh, I'd never do, you know." But like if you want it bad enough and you're told this is the only way you will get that, you would be surprised what you'll do.
I mean, I think that just goes to show we shouldn't judge people when we haven't been through it because, again,
Mhm.
you're right. We don't know
You don't know.
anything about what we would do until we're the ones doing it. And all those
Yeah.
things that we said we would never do, we find ourselves doing them. So,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know,
Quickly too. Like I don't even question. Like, yeah, it's one of those things. I also found like volunteering a lot was really helpful, connecting with people and going to like the grief groups. And then I started an infertility group with Chasing the Rainbows now. It's a support group. So people can just jump on that on Zoom and we all just talk about what's going on that week. But that's been a really nice way to connect to people too.
no, I think that's amazing. I actually just recently became familiar with that organization. I was like, how did I not know about this? I had
Yeah.
Bernice
Yeah.
on a few weeks ago and she's amazing. So, yeah,
Yes,
I
she
just,
is.
I love it. I think that's
Yeah, and she had done some infertility treatments as well, so she understands like the secondary prime and I'm like the primary infertility and she was like, "Oh, I would love to expand this into a few more things and I'd really love if you could like start that infertility section of Chasing the Rainbow." So that's what I've been kind of working on and it's been good.
I feel like for a lot of us, just finding some way to channel our grief into something that we know is positive and helping others and also
Mhm.
helping ourselves. I think that's
Yeah.
what a lot of us end up doing.
I think so too. There's some people that like they can't do, they need to separate it from themselves and then there's other people like us that like need to pour ourselves into it because like I said they are the happiest memory that I have. I don't This is one of the ways that I feel connected to them and that's by being with other people that have been through this and I wish that I could be there for women when it happens because often we are let go from the hospital without many resources, and we didn't plan for this, and nobody has told us what to do, because why would you have ever heard what you were supposed to do or what helped somebody unless you really know someone personally that's been through it? And most people don't.
Right.
So, yeah, I was really fortunate to I think I just like Googled grief or stillbirth support. I don't know what I did, and I found Chasing the Rainbows right away, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna check on that. And since it was all free, which is another huge barrier, is like I've seen a lot of infertility support groups, but there's membership fees, which I understand because they're like running this whole platform. But when you have infertility, a lot of the times your funds are spent on other things,
Yeah.
and I like could never justify joining a support group that charged more money. Like, I did not have insurance coverage. I didn't, so for me that was never feasible. So I'm really like passionate about like this free support for people.
I actually didn't realize that there were some that charge.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, I get it. They have to fund it, but at the same time, it kind of seems like, really, you're charging?
I know. I know. It's like, well, like,
Yeah, it's like one of those things, like I could see both sides, but
yeah.
yeah,
But
I
for me,
probably wouldn't want to pay it either.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, no, I am charged. IVF's like $20,000. I don't have another anything. I don't have another penny for, so
Yeah,
yeah,
the infertility, man, that just adds another whole
yeah,
like financial strain, emotional strain, physical.
all
Yeah,
of it.
and all these people who are just like, just do IVF, like
Oh,
it'll,
I know.
you
Yeah,
know.
because it's also that's a guarantee, which I naively thought, like, of course it's gonna work.
Well, why? I mean,
Because
why
why
would you
wouldn't it?
not though? Like,
Yeah,
when you are first doing it, and you think, oh well, all these people get pregnant with IVF. It's gonna work
right.
for me. That's all I need.
Obviously. I Yeah. Oh, I was so naive.
I feel that way too about a lot of things, but how, like you said, how are we ever supposed to know these things? Because nobody ever
True.
tells us.
Yeah.
And even
I
if they
have
did try to tell us, would we really want to hear it?
you
I
know,
don't know.
I don't know.
You know?
I feel like I had seen it, in my job. Oh, like that didn't, but eventually it would. And I was like, oh, that won't happen to me though. Like, I'll be one and it'll be done. One retrieval, one transfer, boom. That's so not the case, but I know. I've always wondered why clinics don't seem to like give you real statistics when you like sit down for that consultation. Nobody says, okay, this might take a couple times. They just like are like, oh yeah, great, you're a candidate. Let's do it.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know?
yeah, I guess I can think of a lot of things surrounding that. So I don't really know the reason for
Yeah.
that. It's like, do they want to just make sure people don't lose their hope, or they want to make sure people don't like say, well, I'm not gonna pay it if it's not a guarantee, or
Right.
you know.
Something. But so when you do like donor egg and stuff, you do have to like go through one psych eval. So it's kind of like one therapy session. But I'm like, just to do IVF in general, maybe you should do one therapy session. And then you just have them in case you need them. Like, now you've established some sort of relationship that you can like go back to if you need it throughout your journey. But maybe someday.
We'll see. Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to change, I think, in a lot of areas regarding infertility and loss and women's health care, and just, yeah, I could go
Oh my
on and
gosh, yeah.
on.
A whole nother podcast.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share, Ed?
I don't think so. I think I've got all my stuff in there. I hit all my notes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much. I'm so happy that you are doing what you're doing, and I'm happy to have connected with you.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your story with us. I related so much to you saying that your babies wouldn't want their legacy to only be of sadness and pain. It's really hard to get to that place sometimes, but I think it's such an important place to be. Our babies love us so much. We love them so much. Yes, we are incredibly sad and incredibly broken on some days because they left far too soon. And it is okay to have these days. But I think the important thing is to also try to have the good days where you also remember the happy moments, the love, and the joy you felt at knowing your baby was there. Again, I'm not saying that you're never allowed to be sad. That is pretty much impossible after losing our babies. I like to think of it in terms of how I would want my loved ones to feel about me and my legacy. I don't want them just thinking of how sad they are that I'm gone. I want them to remember the happy moments in the other parts of my life too. I think our babies want the same thing. The bottom line for me is that no matter what, they will always be our babies, and we will always be their parents. And nothing can ever change that. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.